Imagine when you were 18, if you could talk to the future version of yourself. What would that be like? You'd want to know as much as you can, I would assume. Or maybe you'd want to avoid any of that information. Well, that is the premise of the new movie, My Old Ass. All right, this movie is about a girl who just turned 18, and on her birthday, her and her two best friends head to this abandoned island to take mushrooms, and she doesn't exactly get the trip she was expecting. She ends up being visited by her 39-year-old self. Now, her 39-year-old self doesn't want to give her any clues or any information about the future, but it sounds dark and grim and just forebodingly scary. And she doesn't say anything besides love your family, spend as much time with them as you can, and avoid a guy named Chad at all costs. And then she goes away. And then later on, this girl finds her old version of herself, the phone number in her cell phone. She calls it, and her old self answers. And they start this relationship. It's charming, it's witty, it's interesting. And then all of a sudden, the call just doesn't go through anymore. And her old self doesn't answer. And that's when she ends up meeting the guy named Chad. And now she avoids Chad at all costs, but he keeps popping up in her life everywhere. And then eventually she spends time with him and realizes he's one of the most charming, genuine, kind people you could ever meet. But she has to avoid him. But she can't. She falls in love with him. That is the premise of My Old Ass. Now, I didn't know anything about this movie besides it was an Aubrey Plaza movie. And come to find out, Aubrey Plaza's barely in the movie. She's in a couple of scenes. And it's not this raunchy, over the top, hilarious film that I was expecting. It was a beautiful coming of age film that is kind of relatable, even though the premise isn't relatable. And it's oddly, sincerely Canadian, which is interesting because you don't get that very often. And overall, the young girl, Elliot, uh, she is played by a woman named Maisy Stella, and she's charming and full of charisma. And she's nothing like Aubrey Plaza. It doesn't look like her, but they kind of call that out in the movie and make a joke out of it. I don't know. This movie is fantastic. I think you should see it. And do yourself one more favor and check out my old ass's movie review podcast. It's called Movie Toast, news and reviews, and we're available wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you, and please stay toasty.